Your music sucks.
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. Come on now. I mean, listen, you can do a lot better. Okay.
You could. What are you doing with your time? Is that what you could do? There's a kid on YouTube that's better than you. Oh, that one hurts.
Obviously we're just kidding. But when I first started making music, and this is a long, long time ago, I didn't really know what I was doing. And admittedly, my music did suck. It sucked really bad. I remember the first experiments I made in the genre I'm in now, which was 12 years ago, at this very time, like literally 12 years ago, I had no idea what I was doing.
It's funny, probably at that time, you're like, yeah, this sounds so good.
I know. Actually, I was self-aware enough that I knew. I was like, this is kind of trash. Like, this is kind of, like.
Early on, you knew.
Yeah, but at the same time, I was shit, how old was I? I was in my early 30s. Like, I knew that, like, I was gonna, I was making music that wasn't actually what I was trying to make, that I was sort of aiming in that direction, but the compass wasn't quite landing. But that's okay. That you got to start somewhere. There has to be a starting point. No one puts out their best track as their first track ever.
Right.
It just doesn't happen that way. You have to, start with simple like steps to actually get to the goal. Now, when I say your music sucks, I mean, it's just a way to get a reaction out of you, because I think we all can admit maybe some parts, even if you're further along in the journey, there are parts of your music that do suck.
And there could be a difference of like the idea and execution. It could be, your first couple songs really suck, but the idea is actually kind of cool. It's just your implementation of that idea isn't the greatest.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
With the lack of tools and knowledge that you may have had at the time.
Yeah. And as a music coach, I run into this a lot with a lot of my, coaching clients. And you're right on target with that, is that they have the right ideas. Like everything is moving in that direction. It's just that they haven't tweaked things enough, or they haven't like made the right adjustments, or they haven't added the right parts, or even organized the parts that they have into a listenable and comprehensible understanding, right? They haven't like organized it enough to be like, okay, now this is a listenable piece of music, right? Or a piece of music that has a higher, I don't know. I don't know how you classify this stuff, but like it's on a higher tier. You know what I'm saying? Like this went from an amateurish track to something that actually sounds semi-professional to professional level. Right?
Yeah, it does come to that point. Yeah,
because there's no like scoring system. Like, oh yeah, you made a track that scores 85% on the Signs of Life-o meter or something. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't. There's nothing like that. There's no level of measurement. And I ran into that a lot.
Things will change through time as well. Like things will change through time. For example, you remember when Nickelback came out with How You Remind Me? It was this like almost common cultural thing to hate Nickelback for some reason, but deep down we're like, oh, that sounds so good.
I don't understand it.
I don't know.
I think we've mentioned this on the podcast. Have we not?
It sonically sounds good. The message, it's a good song. Just stop fighting. Just give it up.
Just give it up. Some of that music is actually really good.
Yeah, like the Limp Bizkit era, the Korn era, like those times. Sonically, the mixes sounded really good. Some people might not be fans of the genre. That's okay. Yeah. And that's a difference of like, what are you trying to say sucks? Is it the actual idea? Because there's been ideas that I have that I thought that were great. I'm like, this is bad. I should stop this, right? But then at the same time, you learn from that at the same time. Yeah. And there's some ideas that are really cool. But then, like I was saying, the execution kind of sucks. Which is why you can have songs from the 80s that sound sonically awful, but they're actually really good songs.
Yeah, true. Okay, so before we leave this point, like you could do a lot worse musically than Nickelback. I'm sorry. Like there are a lot worse types of music out there and bands out there than Nickelback. That is not the worst band of the 2000s. Not even close. Like there are such worse bands out there who are just like, oh my God, like that's... No, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, who get a lot more credit too. I mean, Nickelback, they've done really well. They've actually won, I think they've won Grammy Awards or something, but I mean, I
hope so.
I hope so. Right. Exactly. So anyway, off topic, but you guys get the idea, right? So like, what actually classifies this? I ran this a lot when I was teaching guitar. I was a guitar teacher for many, many years. And I would have students come in and they'd say like, what level am I? Like, am I a beginner, advanced beginner? Am I intermediate? Like how would you classify my performance, right? Or my level of skill and proficiency? And I'd be like, well, I guess you're an intermediate player now. Like you've reached that level. And it was just my own personal interpretation, right? So how do you do that with your own music? How do you say, oh yeah, this sounds like, this is a pretty like expert level track.
Like if you could slip it into like similar genres, would it really stand out?
Right.
That it's like your track, it's an amateur homemade one, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, this is all interpretation because we have the creative aspect of music, like how does this creatively fit in? Then we have the technical aspect, how does it actually sound? And this is one of the reasons why I tell my students and I tell other people to put a reference track up in your DAW. Literally take an MP3 and put it at the top of your DAW on a blank track, and then solo that track, and then unsolo it and mute it, and then listen to your track, right? What you're going to hear is the sonic difference between something that's finished and mastered, between your track, which is still in the mix phase and whatever, but at least you're going to hear where the target is roughly, right? Because your track isn't going to be mastered, but you can at least hear like, okay, here's what they were doing and here's what their, level of frequency they have. You know what I'm saying? You could like put a frequency like analyzer or something on their track.
Yeah.
And see like, oh, wow, they have all these different frequencies. They got a lot of high end, a lot of low end, the things are scooped down here and whatever. And again, mastering is just going to polish off what's already there. I always tell people that like mastering is like it's not like you're going to fix anything. You know what I'm saying? But if your track has like nothing over 6K, then you have a problem and you got to fix that. You know what I'm saying? You have to like adjust that to actually put something up there to like adjust that. Or maybe your bass is like way down here and it's like not even hitting above like, -10 or something. You know what I'm saying? Like you have no bass in your track. You need to add, you should probably add something in the low end.
I've noticed a lot of I was going to say sucky tracks, but I guess I'll say sucky tracks. All right. And this happened a lot to mine as well, that I for a long time, I didn't know what sounded so weird. And a lot of the times it's the low mids that are way too much that really kind of mess up the balance of tracks. And I would even look back to some of my old stuff. I'm like, oh my God, anywhere from like 175 to maybe at most 400. Like there's too much of that in the mix. And if you just get a little EQ and kind of bring that down, and obviously it's different for every song, but I noticed, I'm like, wow, I get now clarity, now the actual nice thumpy low end that you can like feel in your chest, that stuff's starting to pop out a little bit more. I can have some more dynamic range with all of my stuff, and it can sound a little bit better. The low mids, for some reason, were always a kind of a weird problem, and that maybe that kind of brings it to the point of the monitoring gear. If you have shitty gear, if you have skull candy headphones or like earbuds that can't reproduce stuff, then how do you know what's there and what's not there? You know what I mean?
But I think that there is a story. I think this is true. This might be urban legend or whatever. But I think like Skrillex like made his Grammy award winning, was it Skrillex or AFX Twin made a Grammy award winning track on like a really like basic setup, like just on like computer speakers or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like he literally made Bangarang or some track like that. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but like that track that won a Grammy award was literally made on a crappy ass setuut.
But was it mixed and mastered on that? It must have been sent to a studio.
I don't know. Who knows? I mean, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people have different opinions on like headphones or whatever, headphones versus monitors, right?
Sure.
And I think we've gone over that in maybe a previous episode, or maybe, you might have an opinion on that if you're watching or listening. But like, I love these headphones. These headphones that I'm wearing right now, I love these headphones. They're great to me.
They look good on you.
They sound good. They feel good. I can mix on them. I can design sounds on them. And I've heard people in my comment section crap on these headphones. They're like, those things are trash. They're the worst. And it's like,
weird.
Oh, okay. That's your opinion of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's nice, but they work for me. And here's my results with these headphones. I don't really care. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, as long as they can reproduce what you're hearing and you know what's in them, then that's kind of really the battle. People get very dogmatic. This brand versus that brand. It's like, does it sound okay to you? Does it reproduce the frequencies you need to hear? Great.
Yeah. Okay.
That's really all it comes down to.
If you're listening or watching this, if you only have a pair of these and you don't even have monitors yet, that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like you could actually mix an entire record on just headphones. Okay. And sometimes that's all people have. They just have a laptop. They have their headphones to plug into it. They don't even have a proper interface or monitors or whatever. And believe me, I get it. And it's a thing. You know what I'm saying? I think
it's more than a thing nowadays. I think that's becoming more like speakers in studio rooms and treated rooms are kind of more the exception.
And even people who are making music on a goddamn iPad. I'm telling you, iPad music is a thing now.
Oh,
it's
I know.
Not,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it is not what it used to be, maybe say 10 years ago. Like 10 years ago, it was kind of like
not at all.
Very fringe. Like, I was trying it out. I remember being on an airplane using like a version of like Alchemy and whatever on a plane. I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. And there was this, I forgot what the name of that DAW was. There was like an inboard DAW, like beat maker. I don't know what the hell it was called. But now, like, people are making full on tracks on iPads. You know what I'm saying?
And the advantage of that is you can go anywhere and produce your music. Because you ever notice if you physically change your location, you're going to almost spiritually, emotionally, everything feel different, right? If for those of you who have ever been to Hawaii, you're going to notice you feel different once you get out there versus where you are right now.
100%.
Or when you walk into work in the morning at 8 a.m., you're not going to feel the greatest version of yourself. So being in different places will give you different feelings and emotions. And if you can write music using that concept, then you know, that's why I like it with my laptop. I like going places and putting my headphones on and composing there.
Yeah. So the only advantage I would say that monitors have is they give you a more real world response of how that music is going to sound.
Absolutely.
Granted, if you have your monitor set up with the right settings, right? Because all monitors have different settings, and your room is either treated or like placed in a way where you're going to actually hear, you're not going to get all these other like reflections and stuff coming off of your monitors, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So monitors come with a whole different like set of like circumstances and requirements that you have to use. You can't just buy monitors, put them in a room and hope they're going to be great. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to actually set up
even
your
the best
room
monitors
properly.
in a shitty room is not going to sound good.
That's why I have sound panels on my walls. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, everything about the way monitors interact with your environment is just, it's part of the reason why you use monitors in the first place.
And if you don't believe that, take your great monitors, put them in your bathroom and play some music through it, and good luck with that. It's going to sound awful.
Yeah. Or put it in a very large room. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like a very large room. There's a room in my house, for example, which has a really high ceiling and it's like thin. And when I could like literally hear the reverb. If I clap in that room, I could literally hear the reverb coming off the freaking walls and stuff. I'm like,
for sure. Yeah.
It's like clap. And I was like, if I can only imagine if I play music in here, that would just be crazy, because there'd be all kinds of reflections coming off of these walls, and they go right back into my whatever I'm listening to. They go right back into my freaking microphone, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Or right into the way I perceived how that music would sound. So anyway, that goes off on a whole different tangent. The point of this whole like conversation was, okay, you can have whatever setup you're going to have, you know what I'm saying? But you need to have some sort of reference point, like, okay, what level am I trying to reach and how am I going to get there, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
How am I going to take my music that I think sucks, or maybe it's not as good as something else, and how am I going to elevate it to that next tier or that next level, right?
And if you're a beginner, you already kind of inherently know this. Whatever your genre of choice is, you have your favorite songs, you have your favorite artists, you know exactly what those mixes sound like. So use that to your advantage. You already have an endpoint. The only thing that you need to work out now is how to get from A, where you are, to B, where the songs that you like. So you know where you're going, and that's the most crucial point, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So going back to this, to the compositional aspect of it, starting with a simple idea is actually really important, I think. If you take things that are too lofty, sometimes that's not going to pan out, right? If you go, I'm going to make a track like this, and there's too many different elements in it, maybe you might not even get to the point. You might need to start with a very simple, whether it's a motif, whether it's a melody. That's a great way to start a piece of music. I find that when I try to like put too much too fast into a piece of music, it doesn't really work. You know, I always need to start with a simple sound, and that's what gets me ignited to like kind of move in that direction.
Simplicity creates complexity.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Exactly. Because that's really what it comes down to. Like in the end is like, is your music like easy to understand? Does it have a melody, right? Does it have something I can follow? You know what I'm saying?
Dude, there's this, I forget where I read this from, but it was a good thing. And it's kind of similar on that, where whenever you watch a movie and here's the intro, kind of fades in, it's going to introduce you to maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 characters for the most part. Right, and kind of view that as your music. When you first start your music, you don't have a billion things going on, because how can the listener identify with that? You need to maybe fade something in, or you have like some pads going in, and then after a few bars, you introduce something else to kind of mix it up, make it more interesting. You're introducing new characters, but think of that as your instruments.
I always talk about that, especially in my coaching sessions, is like, how are you telling this story, right?
Yeah, it's a story. Yeah.
It's a story. What story are you telling? And how are you leading? You are the director of your own music. How are you leading us through this story, right? How are you leading us through this, whether it's an allegory, whether it's a, whatever it is. And people say, well, it's just sound. How does sound relate to literature, or how does sound relate to whatever art, right? But but like, if you're the one who's composing it using your imagination, how come you can't take that imagination and actually say, well, this is such and such, and this is such and such, and actually not personify, but like embody that spirit, right? To say, this is my story that I'm telling. And, emotionally, we get drawn into music because we do have an emotional connection to it, right? So the way in which we play bass lines, the way in which we create melodies, that's what tells the story, right? And that's why music and film go together so well, is because we see something. And then if a composer can take what we see and then translate that into music, and it enhances.
Oh, man. Yeah.
That is a tale as old as time. You know what I'm saying? Like, they've been doing this forever, right?
Like, take any favorite movie like you like, and then press mute, and then watch how your interest substantially drops.
Yeah. Can you imagine watching Star Wars without freaking John Williams' soundtrack? You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's about the music and the sound.
It's about the music, man. Like, even the Star Trek soundtrack is good. Even the Blade Runner. You name it. Like,
that was a good one. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, all these different movies have these really famous soundtracks.
Titanic. Anybody?
Titanic.
Hopefully for the guy in the back there. He's like, yeah, man, fucking Titanic, dude. I'll never let go.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, or even the Harry Potter goddamn theme song. Like, that was a really well done kind of lead into that entire movie series, was that one motif.
Yep.
Like,
and like you said, it's a story. It's
a story, right? So going back to electronic music or whatever kind of music you make, like, how are you telling that story, right? How are you leading us into your world and telling us that story? Because it could even be something very, very simple. And if that simplicity is going to translate into the world you're trying to create, then the audience is going to connect with it. And I don't care if your music has all these like really $500 dollar plugins in it, whatever, and you have all the best stuff and the best this. If you're not creating music that I can relate to, it doesn't matter how much your studio costs.
That's true.
It doesn't matter how much money you've invested into the craft. Like, you could start with literally nothing and just free plugins. And if you use those free plugins in a way that sounds relatable and creates a melody that I'm going to hook onto, that's what it is. Because I meet producers every single week who are like, here's what I use. I'm like, what kind of setup you got? They're like, not much. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, damn, this is banging, bro. Like, I love this. You know what I'm saying? And that to me shows that it's not just about the tools, it's about the composer. And it's about how the composer interprets what the medium that they're working in. You know what I'm saying?
That's how I feel about a lot of the AC/DC stuff. Like, I love those songs. The mixes aren't great, but I mean, maybe that's part of the charm. I don't know, but like, I'm like, to me, I'm like, I'd like some more low end or maybe some more chunk to it. I don't know, but at the same time, they're great songs. Like, if you're driving somewhere, drive fast down the road, obviously at a safe speed limit with your seatbelt and use your blinkers. But anyway, roll your windows down. Roll your windows down, listen to Highway to Hell, and tell me that's not a good time.
Well, it could be attributed to Angus's guitar playing. It could be attributed to the way he composed his chord progressions.
And that's the thing, I've even stopped at a stop sign when he's like, no, stop sign, speed limit. And I'm like slowing down at a stop sign. I'm like, this feels wrong. But yeah, that actually happened, by the way.
That's actually a really potent example. I mean, because that people can relate to. Like, the music of AC/DC. Yeah. Like, how do you feel about it? You know what I'm saying? Because it's almost
pumps me up, dude.
Yeah, it's almost polarizing in a way, because I obviously I know how to play guitar, and I've played many of those songs on guitar. And believe it or not, most of them, I'd say 50 to 75% of them are dead simple, like chord progressions.
Yeah, it's really not a complicated thing, but simple. It awakens something in us.
Yeah, and I don't think AC/DC used too many alternate tunings. I think a lot of it was played in standard tuning, especially the early stuff. So and maybe he was in down tuned a little bit, but like they're just using, A, D, E, you know what I'm saying? Like, simple stuff, right?
But yet their energy of that band, those group of guys, transformed through time, through these microphones, even to our current day, and you can still feel that vibe. It's almost like you create a sonic room and separated from space, separated from time, that anybody can go and visit at any time that they want to.
We were talking about Black Sabbath earlier, and like, if you listen to early Black Sabbath, like the actual roots of the band Black Sabbath in the 1970, 1971 releases, 72, like those early Black Sabbath records. Now, this is homework for anybody who's watching Harmonic Horizons, but like those are really, really simple riffs that were often attributed to the beginning of heavy metal music, period. Like those were like, them and some other bands were like sort of coined as like the founders of heavy metal. But like some of those early like Black Sabbath records, like I'll take Master of Reality for an example, like that, the riffs on that album were so simple, but they were so powerful.
And that just goes to make that point even more. I mean, even like you're a guitar player, I play guitar from time to time. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people out there play guitar. It's kind of funny, right? That some of the best songs and most, I guess amazing compositions of songs, that's what we learn as beginners. How many people of us have learned Smoke on the Water, like dum, 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 you know, like we try to emulate the most simple songs, but they're so good at the same time. Yeah. Which kind of goes to that point, you know? So, I mean, you fast forward and like, okay, Chris plays an Ascendant, right? And how does that, how does a Master of Reality translate into Ascendant? Like it's the foundation that these songs are built on. And that's what influenced me. You know what I'm saying? It's the foundation of like learning that like melody is important. And you focus on melody, you focus on those simple ideas, and that's what translates into good music, right? That's what also to leave, I guess, this point, the notes that you don't play are almost as equally important as the notes that you do play. I know. That's a big one, I think, you know. It's the notes. I always have to be playing. It's like, no, you can pause, you can take some rest. We had our guest on the other day, the notes in between the notes. That's the thing. Yeah. Take a little pause. I have a next point here as well. So this one is knowing you don't know what you don't know. And this is one where I think when we're beginning out on certain things, maybe we're learning EQ, maybe we're learning composition. So we get presented with this information that we find and we think this is exactly what we need and we try it out. And sometimes we're like, oh, this isn't what I like. I remember vividly where I was making the song with a lot of guitars in it. And it's like, oh yeah, around 2Ks, there's some bite in the guitar. And I interpreted bite as like maybe more in your face, aggressive, but I pushed a lot of that number, 2.5K, not really realizing what it was doing to the mix. And then when I would go and check it out in my car or different speakers, it would hurt my ears. I'm like, what is this bite? This is painful to me. So it's almost like I didn't know what I was actually doing. I had this advice. I thought it would apply to my music, and it really didn't. So I didn't know exactly what I was going for. So you don't really know what you don't know until you have to try these things and say, okay, I get what the bite is saying, but it's not what I want. I was looking for maybe more chunks. So I didn't know what I was actually looking for. So I didn't get the results that I wanted. But how do you actually translate those words, bite and chunk, into frequency? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, or that slaps. I guess that's a positive compliment, you know? Like, give me more slap or give me more chunk in my sound. Chunk, yeah. Or, you know, because a lot of people, they might try to say like, oh yeah, this has more, I don't know, gliss in their sound. You know what I'm saying? You might interpret that in different ways. And everyone, you know, English is just one way to translate this, but like you might have a different way to how to articulate what that sound is. So if you're listening to somebody who's at a high level in your genre and you're putting them up in your DAW, how do you translate that, what they have compared to what you have? You know, that's a hard one too. You know, I want some more groove in it. You're like, I kind of know I know what you're talking about, but what exactly do you mean? And that's kind of understanding those is kind of a difficult thing because it's going to be different for different people. Right. You know? Right. So getting down to the actual like point of it, like what types of sounds are they using? What rhythms are they using? What melodies are they using? You know what I'm saying? What types of sounds are they using? And how does that translate into better music technically? You know what I'm saying? Right. It's all those things, right? So focusing on those actual concepts of the music, not just like what elements they have, not just whatever. It's just like what is there that is present in this music that you could take from whatever music you're listening to and saying, I want to implement that into what I do. And you're the final filter of it. You're the one who absorbs it. You have to trust yourself too. So I think too, as beginners, we say that we don't know everything, so let's just rely on others. And sure, that can be okay at some point, but you're the final spot where it gets through until it gets to your computer. Some things might not sound right to you. Some things, like genre-wise, Latin music, the horns are very loud. To my ears, it sounds wrong. Yeah. But that's just how it is. In metal, kick drums are very clicky. That's a thing. So to some people who just like more round or softer kicks, or kicks kind of tucked in, maybe like a jazz kick, that will sound wrong to them.
Yeah.
So it's all perspective.
Right. It's all perspective. So this brings me to my point is that, overcrowding your music with too many things is sometimes a really bad thing, and you don't want to do that. So like overcrowding your mix with too many different elements at one time.
So more is way too much.
More is way too much, right? So focusing on simplicity is paramount, I think, in anyone's music. Doesn't matter what genre you're playing in, whether it's electronic, ambient, heavy, hardcore, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't really, if you're overcrowding it with something, then chances are it's not going to be, the listener isn't going to be able to digest what's happening at any given time.
Right. And that gives you more opportunity to really sculpt that sound, because if you're having all these crazy stuff in there, you can kind of get away with low quality ingredients. Like if you're cooking, for example, right? It's I always kind of see things. So if you have like a kick drum, or I guess a drum set, maybe some pads, a bass, and a lead, if that's all you have for your elements of your track, you really have to make sure that each one of those sounds great and can stand by themselves. There's no time to like tuck these in. Oh yeah, the bass kind of sucks, but there's all these things going on that the listener's not going to notice. It's kind of in a way slightly more challenging, but way better results.
That's a really good point. You can't let anything slip through the cracks.
You can't. You know what I'm saying? It's like a microscope on your song.
Yeah, right. And somebody like a professional producer like you and I, we would be able to pick up on that. We'd be like, oh yeah, that bass does suck. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not really that high quality. And I can tell because my ear can focus on several different things at once. And I'm listening for those different, like I'm almost like it's like a mental checklist. Like, is the bass there? Is it present? Does it sound good? Is the lead there? Is the sequence there? Is this, that, are all these different things. Yeah. And we go through it in our mind. And even if you're like someone, this is the thing that I think beginners don't give themselves a lot of credit for, or even amateurs, they don't give themselves credit for, is you have a like subconscious checklist and like a mental memory of what sounds good. And even if you're not perceiving it like on a mental level, you're still listening for it, right? You're still like, and that's why people who are just like outside of music, like if you don't even know anything about music and you don't know how to play it, you don't know how to produce it, you still know what sounds good. You still know what you like.
That's the important part. It's that end goal. You know where you're going to go. Yeah.
So you still like, you have thousands, you go to a concert and there's 15,000 people there. And maybe 10,000 of those people don't know jack crap about music at all. They don't know anything about how to play or whatever, but they're there because they like the music, right? Yep. They love the jam. They love the feeling. They love to dance to it, whatever it is.
And that's something beginners have to hold on to, because that concept will start to go away from you. Who are just
there to have a good time and to enjoy the music, they still know. They still know why it sounds good. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They hear that sound of that piano or that sound of that bass line, the sound of that guitar, and they're like, yeah, that's what I like. You know what I'm saying?
Like you can like your favorite foods, but you don't know how they're put together. You don't know how it
happens. So then you have the other 5,000 people who are sitting there staring at the guys playing music, or they're staring at the dude the way he's playing the guitar, or they're listening for all the technical aspects of the thing. They were like, yeah, that guy's using a Les Paul, or you know what I'm saying? Or he's using a Marshall half stack, or he's playing a Tama drum set with the double bass thing. And
he's got those like turtle picks.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, exactly. He's using a turtle pick, whatever. Or looking at, a big thing with bands is pedal boards. People love to look at the pedal board.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? They love to stare at it,
like what kind of pedals you got. And even guys like John Mayer have like completely mystified that process, and they never like to show their pedals because there's so many of them. And so they have a big switchboard on stage with like 20 different freaking switches, and all the pedals are backstage. Screw having the pedals on stage. You're not going to find out what I'm using. Only my tech guy knows what each one of these pedals does. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. Anyway, so my point is like, even if you don't think you know. You know what I'm saying? You have, and so the more you're able to define it with experience, and the more you're able to articulate what those impressions are and what that mental checklist is, the better producer you're going to become. So take time with your music, and take time comparing and contrasting what sounds good, what you think sounds good, and working towards that goal. Because if you push yourself towards that like desired result, you're going to get there eventually. You know what I'm saying?
You can only get really better.
You're going to start to make realizations along the way, along that spiral of like, oh yeah, I really got to work on my bass skills a little more.
I was just going to say that. Yep. That's right.
I really got to work on this a little more. And then you're going to push yourself in that direction, right? And that's how you become a better producer. That's how I became a better producer. It might be different for everybody, but that's how personally I became better at my craft, which was just focusing on certain things at certain times. And eventually it all led up into where I'm at now, right?
Yeah, it's like putting those drums, bass, pads, leads. If you put that together, you're kind of going to know where something might lack a little bit, right? Because if you have 4 people and one of them has like a funky green hat that looks really weird, you could be like, oh, there's the guy with the funky green hat sitting right there. But if he's in a crowd of like 1 million people, you're going to be like, I don't know. It all looks the same. Nothing's really special. So maybe you might need to work on your pads or your leads or something like that, and maybe follow that timeline a little bit more.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got. Honestly, like if you think your music sucks right now, there's chances are you just have to make a couple different adjustments to it and change your mindset a little bit about it.
Yeah.
And, you're going to work towards getting better and better. And before you know it, it's not like you and I have reached that ultimate level. Like we're still somewhere along on our own personal journey. Right. But I've had a lot of time. You've had a lot of time to understand these concepts. And that's why we're relaying them now. But eventually you're going to get to the point where we are, where you're like, oh yeah, like I understand how to reach that desired result. I've got a lot of experience under my belt, and I know what sounds I'm looking for, and I know what sound I'm actually looking for. And I just move myself towards that. It's just, you just take what you know, and you move yourself towards that desired result. And chances are that what comes out on the other side is, that's what you want to hear.
I think I've mentioned this before, where I don't know if it's a weird psychological effect that happens with us, but for example, when we're producing a song, we listen to it and we print down a mix and we want to test it on different speakers. We hear things a little bit differently, right? Not only because we're in a different room, different speakers, but maybe we feel different on that day or whatever it is. Yeah. But another interesting one is to print your song and then find somebody else, maybe a friend, a family member, something like that, and just say, hey, just listen to the song with me. Put it at a good volume so you guys aren't talking in between it, because that's very frustrating. Yeah. Just put on your song and listen to it with them and kind of look at them a little bit. And the weird thing that's going to happen is you listen to that song differently. You're going to notice, oh, maybe this section is too long. I waited too long before to introduce this lead. Like you can almost subconsciously get notes from them. It's a very weird experience. I don't know why that is, but listening to your song with somebody else who hasn't really heard it, you give yourself notes for it to make it better.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow.
It's a strange one. I don't know why.
Maybe using a third party could be the solution that you need. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes we get so in our own head and our own little world that we don't have any third party feedback. You know what I'm saying? We don't have any external feedback when it comes to that. And that's why I do track feedback groups in my own, my own Patreon.
That is helpful. That is helpful. The feedback thing, because people will see things you don't, that's the thing.
Absolutely. So having another eyes and ears on the process could sometimes be the most valuable thing. So is there any more points you wanted to make before we wrap this one up?
I guess the tiny little one is, and I think we kind of covered this a little bit, was the mindlessly taking advice from things that we don't have enough information out there to really implement because we're not at a level to implement that. So that's kind of a closing point is don't mindlessly take advice if you don't need it. Only kind of look for the things that you're currently looking for, because you're going to waste a lot of time. If you're making a track and someone's like, hey, have you heard of parallel compression before? And that's way farther away. Just pump the brakes on that, and then maybe just focus on your bass, and then maybe you can revisit that at a later time.
Which is why we're trying to do what we do here at Harmonic Horizons. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to give you guys an alternative perspective to kind of help you guys.
Take 2 of these and call us in the morning.
That's it. There you go. Take a John pill and a Chris pill, and then just drop it in, and boom.
Dr. Pill, dude.
Yeah. Instantly awesome music.
That's right. Well, let us know what you guys think. If you were a beginner, if you were like on your way to becoming an intermediate, what are some tips of advice that you can leave as nuggets for the people that come after you?
Indeed. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.
If you're interested in supporting the podcast, please subscribe to the Signs of Life and John Audio channels on YouTube. The link for our channels is down below in the description and in the show notes. For the video version of this show, please subscribe to the Harmonic Horizons YouTube channel to keep up with all the latest episodes. For bonus content, including additional podcast material, head over to the Signs of Life Patreon page. Paid members get access to Beyond the Horizon, our new series of extended conversations with our guests, as well as several other benefits such as early access to all of his videos, exclusive ambient tutorials, over 100 preset packs for various synthesizers, one-on-one coaching for ambient and electronic music, and tons more. If you'd like to support John Audio and the work he does, head over to his YouTube channel and subscribe. You can also check out his Gumroad page for a selection of free and paid preset packs. Finally, he has a Patreon page where subscribers get access to additional content, such as exclusive music, presets for various synths such as Pigments and Diva, specialized courses, and more. Harmonic Horizons is hosted on Buzzsprout and is now available on all major platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and all other major podcast directories. If you'd like to reach out to us or would like to be a guest on the show, you can contact us at harmonichorizonspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.